Hello and welcome to week 6, where we're going to talk about the 5E lesson plan. So, first off is our agenda. So, we're going to look at the components of the 5E lesson, and then we're going to look at 5E versus 6E, because I know in your textbook they have 6E, but I'm trying to make it easier for you. You're welcome. And then I'm going to give you a sample 5E lesson. So first off, let's talk about the components. So first is engage. This is where you're hooking those kids in, trying to pique their interest and their curiosity. Then you're going to explore, and they are the ones that are exploring and doing an active investigation. And we're going to look at some examples of those. Then you're going to explain. This is kind of a lot of dialogue, but teacher-led. So the kids are going to explain their thinking, and then you're going to give them some more information about the topic. Then they're going to kind of go back to that exploring activity, and they're going to extend their knowledge based on what you gave them in the explain part of the lesson. Then you're going to evaluate to see if the students understood the concept. And oftentimes during that evaluate, I also use that as note-taking time. So I'll kind of go over that and throughout this. So first, engage. So you could post a picture, have them, what do you think about this? What observations do you see? You can have very open-ended questions. We've seen in previous slides and previous weeks that I ask a lot of questions. I want the kids to be thinking more than me. You can do a little demonstration about a current event or an topic. Also show pictures. What's going on in that picture? Okay, have them brainstorm and bring in that prior knowledge. You can also do polls based on their prior knowledge and connect to their personal lives. So these are all the engage part, but make sure that it connects to the lesson. It's not just a random thing. It should go with the topic. So if I was using this scuba diver picture, I need to make sure that I'm using this for aquatic biomes or habitats, food chain, food webs, something like that, not just a random thing. Okay, our next one. This is one of my sweet former students, exploring. So in this picture, this student was exploring an earthworm, and we are looking at decomposers. So she was able to actually see how this decomposer moved, how it reacted to different things. And so they were able to see how that goes with within the food chain and food web. Oftentimes the explore portion is collaborative work. Okay, then the next one is where you start to give information. And I tried to give not just one specific lesson, because I'll go over an example at the end, but here are some different ways that I've used. So then explain. First, you're going to have, and these are the steps. That's why it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First, you're going to have the kids explain what they saw. What are their observations? What did they find? Because that's going to kind of channel your discussion and how you are going to teach them about those concepts. And then you're going to talk about the key vocabulary. Okay? The kids should be already kind of on those vocabulary, but they might not know exactly what the vocabulary word is. Okay? And then they're going to go back into a collaborative learning and formalize their knowledge. And that starts to shift more into the elaborate or extend. So in this picture, these students were exploring a terrestrial biome, and they were pulling out different components of a food web, and they had to try and piece them together. If you kind of look, they're little sand buckets. I got the sand off the playground. It was easy. But you have to think outside the box. It's not just, here's a sheet. Okay, that's boring for me, and that's boring for you, and that's not part of our 5E. So make sure that you are thinking outside of the box. So the elaborate or extend, I often didn't recreate the wheel and have them do a whole different sort of project, I extended it from the explore part. But they can create a project, real world application. This is great, especially for 5th grade when they have that EOG. It's not a vocabulary test, it's an application test. They can further research, just like in this picture you'll see. They are furthering their knowledge of what a food web is by finding the different components in the sand. And they're problem solving together. But this also not only makes them learn the content, but they're also learning how to collaborate with others. And hands-on experiments. I love them. I think they're great for kids to do. It helps with behavior management, but they're all engaged. And the last one is evaluate. This could be formal or informal, but I often used it as a way to take down their notes in their science notebook. So this was an example of what would be in their science notebook. I would always write it down, and then they would copy it, and they would have something else. And then 5E versus 6E. The biggest thing is oftentimes 6E has the engineer part that the 5E doesn't. And let's be honest, not every lesson can have an engineer part in it. So that's why I'm focusing more on 5E versus 6E. Now, here's an example of it all together. So for a habitat lesson for 2nd grade, you just ask a simple question. And I usually put it on the board for students to visualize, and either I would read it or have a student read it. But what is your favorite animal, and what habitat do you think it lives in? Okay. I would have them either jot it down on a little sticky note or talk to their neighbor. But then in pairs, they are going to choose an animal from a list that I give, and I would make slides each day. You'll see more slides. And you've seen slides throughout that are examples of mine. And I wanted them to provide a list characteristics of the habitat. And these animals I pulled from the video that they're going to look and see in the explain. So it's not just a random one. I've kind of channeled it so that then they can get more information from the video. So before we watch the video, we have them share out and talk about these things and why they chose this characteristic over this characteristic. But then I would share a video about different habitats and talk about key vocabulary. So living versus non-living, how does that interact with habitats? Then I would have the students just add to their graphic organizer. It doesn't have to be as hands-on, meaning they have to touch everything every time. But if you think about each time, they're getting to talk to people. It's not just the teacher up there, talk. They are able to collaborate, so it's much more engaging. Then, once they have finished their graphic organizer, have them present them. Come up, tell about it. Make them have ownership. Okay, so this week you are going to create a 6E lesson. Okay, I do want it to be inquiry-based. You are able to choose whatever grade and whatever science topic or standard or objective you would like. Okay, be realistic of what grade you might want to teach so that you have this as a resource. Okay, again, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to email me. But have a great week.